This light here, or the one in there. Could you turn it on again? Thank you very much.
Just down here is the holding area for the prisoners.
We know about the history of this Tolhouse jail, and it's absolutely horrible.
I got knocking in here, Clive.
Wow.
Because I think something's out there.
Yes, sir, yes. Living poison. Manufacturing. It's like a light is in my face, but I can't fall for you. I close my eyes and drift away. I've overdosed on you. Cause then you wake up dead one day.
Rats, mice, no toilets, little food and hard labour were just some of the grueling conditions prisoners had to suffer during the Middle Ages when they were jailed in the Tolhouse dungeons, and they didn't even have to be proven guilty of a crime. A stay at the Tolhouse, one of the country's oldest jails, could be a long and grim business, whether or not you were innocent of the crime of which you were accused. Men, women and children were piled together in two filthy dark dungeons, teeming with mice and rats, where they could fester for up to 10 years while waiting for a date for their trial. The dungeon's floor would be covered in stinking, slopping mess, as there were no toilets and little fresh air. The prisoners would suffer from chronic skin conditions as a result of the squalid conditions and the stress of waiting for their painful punishment if found guilty. In the Tolhouse's early days, flogging, branding with hot irons, being locked in public stocks and death were just a few of the punishments. People were hanged for crimes as petty as stealing a pair of shoes. Trials were held upstairs in the Tolhouse's court, where a number of local women were condemned as witches. In 1645, the notorious witch-finder general Matthew Hopkins come to the Tolhouse to hunt down and try those who were supposedly casting evil spells. Those who were deemed witches were given the harshest punishment, and several women were hanged together in the town. In later years, people who escaped the executioner would sometimes go on to endure a living hell known as hard labour. Working the treadmill was an exhausting, tedious and grueling sentence where prisoners had to climb the equivalent of a 2,000-metre mountain every day. Picking oakum was another plum choice of the judges. Prisoners had to pay for their keep by separating strands of rope covered in smelly tar. Their fingers were rubbed raw as they picked out the threads which were then used to seal boats. Nowhere was the divide between the rich and poor more apparent than in the Tolhouse. Prisoners had to pay for each necessity, from bedding to food and their release from chains. Those who had wealthy families and rich friends would pay the jailer to live upstairs in the master side, where they would be served tasty food and given clean clothes. If they paid enough, the jailer would also set up visits from their girlfriends. However, paupers would be reduced to dressing in rags, and if a charity did not come to their rescue, they would starve. This regime went on until 1823, when the jailers' fees were scrapped and the government introduced guidelines for food rations. There were diets for different grades of prisoner, depending on the crimes that they had committed. The food was worse than meals eaten by the poor on the outside. People who committed crimes weren't the only ones who were sent to the Tolhouse. Those who had run up debts would also be crammed into the hold. There was a window at one end of the chamber where the debtors would rattle their begging bowls at people walking by, which is where they would remain until they had saved enough to cancel their dues. The grueling conditions inside the Tolhouse started to improve when Sarah Martin took an interest in the prisoners' plight. The religious dressmaker began going to the jail in 1818 to hold Sunday services to inspire the inmates to improve their lives. She balanced their spiritual advice and practical help and taught them how to read and write, as well as to make items like books and spoons to sell. Sarah Martin gave the prisoners a sense of purpose and boosted their pride by using the profits to buy clothes. In 1875, the conditions at the Tolhouse were thought to be too decrepit to hold long-term prisoners there, and the last of these inmates continued their sentences at a new prison. People awaiting trial there were still held at the Tolhouse for another 3 years until the Prison Act came into force, spelling the end of the country's 38 small jails. Despite becoming redundant as a prison, there was plenty more life in the building. The Tolhouse's strong 800-year-old foundations and thick walls helped it to survive a direct hit from a bomb in 1941. Although it was badly damaged, the former merchant's house was rebuilt and reopened as a museum, reprising its role before the war. The reports of paranormal activity here are extensive. Apparitions, footsteps, voices, doors opening and closing, things moving by themselves, shadow figures and loud banging sounds are heard.
It's darker and dark in here. Can somebody tell me their name that was imprisoned in this cell and what for? I got knocking in here, Clive. Is that you knocking? Coming from there. Can you knock to me again, please? Can somebody tell me their name that was imprisoned in this cell and what for? I got knocking in here, Clive. Is that you knocking? Coming from there. Can you knock to me again, please? Right, I'm getting imprisoned now. I wanted to feel what it was like when you were imprisoned in here. Can you let me know that you're in here with me, or is there anybody in here with me? Come on, I bet there were some pretty despicable people locked up in this jail. Surely you were not very happy that you were incarcerated here, and maybe you're still stuck here. Tell me your name. Surely some of you were quite evil. Is there anything nasty that haunts this prison? Or evil? I can only imagine how bad it was down here, not knowing when you were going to get out or where your next meal was coming from. Did you hear that talking then?
A child's disembodied voice is heard coming from nearby saying, "In the dark, let's play." Here is the enhanced audio.
Did you hear that talking then? Did you hear that talking then?
I'm Clive, and I'm one of the investigators on this team. And I'd just like to let you know that it's absolutely fascinating being down here this evening. With anybody down here that may be listening, I can see the conditions of the cells and how small they are. And of course, in those days, it would have been worse than what it is now. It's been swept up and kept quite clean. But in those days, it must have been absolutely horrid. You must have a few stories to tell while she was incarcerated down here, for whatever reason. I'm going to be going into one of the cells in a moment, see if I can have a little chat with someone. But while we're out here, if there's anybody that would like to have a little chat, perhaps let us know that you're here. Now's your chance. I'm quite happy to wait in the dark and listen to you, whether it's a knock on the table or making my skin go cold. It's up to you. Just see what you can do. I was told earlier that there's more than one person that goes into these cells. Maybe in some cases up to 12 people crammed in them. So it does make you wonder if the benches were added at a later date. I'm going to open this door.
Okay.
And I'm going to go into this cell. Let's hear if anyone's in here. Well, in comparison to the other three cells, this one's quite cosy. Got a nice padded bed, bit of carpet on the floor. Just wondering if perhaps this cell belonged to somebody who was rich and could influence his guards with some money, a bribe, or maybe loan his wife out perhaps to somebody. Would that be you?
Okay. Just down here is the holding area for the prisoners. So we're going to go down here now. Are any of the people or prisoners still down here, waiting to be sentenced? If you can hear me, hear my voice, please tell me what you're here for. Now there's a light sensor down on the floor. And if you go near it, it will light up. Can you do that? Can you walk up to this door and make that light go off, please? What was it like here? Who's talking? Jackie, Jack. I just heard a child.
Yeah, I heard something.
All I know, it was a child's voice, and
Yeah.
I thought it was somewhere over there. Something. There was quite a few words. Quite a few words.
I heard, yeah.
Jackie and I both hear a disembodied voice of a child saying, "Just unlucky to be here. Here's the audio enhanced." What was it like here? Who's talking? What was it like here? Who's talking?
Is there a little girl here? What's your name? We heard you a little while ago. Be nice if you can say hi to us. Or anybody. If there's any gentlemen down here. We know about the history of this Tolhouse jail, and it's absolutely horrible. As Jeff said, nothing like that goes on anymore, which I'm glad, because I feel for you.
What would this room have been used for when the prison was open? Would prisoners have been held up here as well? Or maybe they were just thrown down into the holding cell and brought up when they were going to stand trial for whatever crime they'd done or not done. So what was this room used for? This door here, as I said earlier, was used to take the prisoners up to the court, which is up above us, and their fate would be sealed then. Could somebody tell me their name that went up these stairs and was ultimately hanged for their crime?
A voice is heard, followed by laughing, and it is caught on Mark's digital recorder. Although the voice is clear, we are unable to make out the words. Here is the audio enhanced.
Wait for the gang to come in. Wait for the gang to come in.
So these are the cells where people were brought. Once they had been Who's there? I've got static going through my arms now, Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Who's there? I just heard you move.
Twice.
We've come to speak to you. Can you tell us your name, please? You can interfere with the equipment if you want to. But what I'd like you to do is use the device. It has a dictionary inside. And speak to us. Use this device. Come through on this device and speak to us, please. Or if you want... Silence. I've been told to be quiet. Why are you asking me to be silent? Am I disturbing you? Are we disturbing you? We don't mean to intrude in your space or cause you any distress or harm. But let's face it, this was a nasty place, a sick place, where they crammed you in these cells, women, children, men, people that were rapists, murderers. Some of them didn't even commit a crime. They were here for the wrong reasons. They were crammed inside these cells, standing up. There wasn't enough room to sit down. You had to urinate on each other. There were rats here. And if the disease didn't kill you, when you got taken upstairs, you're going to die anyway. What is that noise? There's someone walking. That was someone walking, isn't it? What the hell is that?
Guys,
I just got a female's name come through, saying her name is Joyce. Banging and movement is heard coming from the stairwell, and a woman's name of Joyce comes through the EVP detector. What is that noise? Samuel? Samuel Yarham. You were sentenced to death by hanging. What crime did you do, Samuel? What was your crime? It must have been something nasty. Was you a murderer? A rapist? What the hell did you do? Knocking behind me. I can hear knocking.
Yeah, I did.
You heard it too?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the doors are open now, guys. Ladies, children. There you go. You're all free to leave. Wow. Kid you not? Movement in that end cell again, and it sounded as if someone stood up from the bench. And again. Would you like to speak to me now that I've opened up the door? Wow. Kid you not? Movement in that end cell again, and it sounded as if someone stood up from the bench. And again. Okay, Jackie's cam is all out of power, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this static cam run, I'm going to let the REM pod run, I'm going to let the EVP detector run, I'm going to leave this digital recorder in that end cell because that's where we're hearing something moving around. Several minutes pass after we leave the cell area, and a voice is picked up on the camera's audio saying, "They're not gonna come. Did you lock me in that cell?" Here is the footage again, with the audio enhanced.
Then look at that. There's your money in his cell.
Mark goes down into the hold to carry out a solo EVP session.
I'm down here on my own now, so if you want to use my energy, feel free to do so. Can you let me know that you're down here by knocking, banging or turning the light back on the floor there or in the room? Thank you. Thank you very much. What's your name? Thanks very much, that was brilliant, that. Could you do it again? This light here, or the one in there. Could you turn it on again? Thank you very much. Who have I got with me? Is it a man, a woman, or a child? What were you imprisoned here for? What was the reason? What did you do to be held down here? And what was the punishment that you received?
Clive makes his way down to the cells by himself to experience what it must have been like to be locked up in a cell in the darkness. Men, women, and children were placed inside these cells, waiting to be taken upstairs to face their execution.
Okay. Back downstairs now. In the cell area. As you know now, this is where all the prisoners would have been kept, crammed to the rafters in these 4 small cells. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to go and sit in one of the cells. I'm going to close the door behind me and experience for myself what it was like to be kept in the confinement. But I have the added luxury of being in there on my own and not with other people, desperate people who are maybe not guilty, or people who were guilty and didn't care about it much. So before I go in, is there anybody that was here at the time when these cells were busy who would like to come in with me and share your experiences with me? Okay, in we go. That's it.
Comfy.
All comfy. Doors now shut. So here we are in the cell which is furthest from where the guards would have been sat. Totally dark, no light whatsoever. It'd be quite difficult to imagine what it would be like in here on your own, let alone with 8 or 9 other blokes all crammed in, not liking each other. So, is there anybody who would have been in this cell as a condemned man, or maybe not a condemned man, maybe somebody was in this cell who's totally not guilty but just had to ride along with the rest? I'm hearing movement outside the cell right now. As you can see, the door is still shut. Is there anybody else out there who's been in this cell? I've just heard another noise out there.
As Clive is all alone down in the cells, he hears noises and movement come from outside, and our static full spectrum night vision camera that is filming the cells has captured what Clive is hearing. There is also footsteps. Here is the audio taken from the camera and in split screen.
Is there anybody else out there who's been in this cell? I've just heard another noise out there. Is there anybody else out there who's been in this cell? I've just heard another noise out there. There's definitely something going on out there. I can hear creaking. That was not the table that would be creaking. That's literally movement out there. And maybe they don't know I'm in here on my own. It's kind of strange because here I am sat in the cell on my own. But I feel kind of safe because there's a door between me and that noise outside. I'm just wondering if there's anyone else out there who knows that I'm in here. I've just heard movement outside the door again. Is anybody there?
Clive has a response, a voice saying, "It's scary there." Here is the audio taken from Clive's digital recorder.
Is anybody there? Is anybody there? I don't know if you've seen me on other investigations, But like I've said on a couple of occasions, I'm not really scared of the dark. But sometimes a little bit afraid of what's in the dark because you don't know what it is. And it's kind of spooky. Because I think something's out there. And it feels safe to move around because I'm in here and it's out there. So maybe it feels like it's in control. Is there anybody out there? If there is, just make a noise. Let me see you at the window. Or make a scratchy noise on the door. All I'm getting at the moment is a very, very intense silence. There's absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. You know, it wouldn't... A small lamp down on the bench there just flickered. Well, I've been in here a little while now. I'm starting to get used to the solitude. I don't feel quite as... don't know what the word is really. I don't know, frightened I suppose. It's quite strange being locked in the dark.
I release Clive from the cell and we complete our investigation at the Tolhouse Gaol, where it certainly lived up to its reputation. A place where if you was found guilty, you would face execution, and, unfortunately, so did some of the innocent.